2 hours ago, Kyle arrived at the bar.
Hey, what's everyone drinking?
30 minutes ago, Kyle got his friends another round of drinks.
Cheers!
5 minutes ago, Kyle decided to drive home drunk. A minute ago, a law enforcement officer pulled up behind Kyle.
Sir, have you been drinking tonight?
A chain of events that began 2 hours ago is about to change Kyle's whole world. Drive sober or get pulled over. Paid for by NHTSA.
College football never stops. When college football news breaks, it breaks on On3. From the transfer portal to the playoff race to coaching changes, the sport is moving every single day. That's why college football fans turn to On3, a trusted authority with real reporters and real communities built around the teams you care about. Find all of your favorite teams and join the community. Get the full picture at on3.com. That's ON and the number 3.com.
Happy holidays. Want to give your host a gift? Consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show this holiday season. It really helps the show grow. From all of us at Believe, have a Merry Christmas, everyone, and a happy holiday.
Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going. As I like to point out each and every day, it expands our base. And of course, that's our goal. I want to talk with you in this Day After Christmas podcast about foreign policy. I do so because although we are consumed with concerns about our own interactions here in the United States, there is no doubt that the President of the United States is very concerned about foreign policy and his role in that endeavor. So let's begin with Nigeria. There is no doubt that Islamic State, ISIS, continues to function in Nigeria. The President has talked for some time about the fact that Christians are being systematically exterminated in Nigeria. Now, there is no doubt that in a nation which is almost evenly divided between Muslims and Christians, there are real tensions. And there are. The communities have been at odds for years, if not generations. The question becomes, what is America's role? Why are we there? Why are we bombing in Nigeria? And the answer, my friends, is very interesting. Donald Trump received news that his Christian supporters, and remember, the evangelical Christians are actively in the camp of Donald Trump, at least the organized evangelical Christians, their view that Christian ministers and Christian communities in Nigeria are being systematically annihilated by Islamic State. So let's back up for a minute and point out that tensions between Christians and Muslims in Nigeria, indeed in Africa, are not new. Let's also point out that Islamic State has been broken in many ways by American activity. Remember when Islamic State seemed to dominate sections of the Middle East, and then all of a sudden didn't. There are real concerns about whether or not what we are doing in Nigeria will work. And now we are told that the Nigerian government is cooperating with the United States. My question is, what factions in the government are in fact cooperating with us? And is what we are doing constructive? These are real issues, and I want to point out to you there are no real answers. We don't know where the strikes have taken place. We don't know who the targets are. We don't know what the outcome of these attacks have been. I say this because it's true that it's new. Everything is unfolding now, and we frankly don't know what the results are. But let me point out once again that Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, is saying this is just the beginning. If I were a member of Congress, if I were on the House Armed Services Committee, I would certainly want to know what that means. Does it mean that we are going to continue to support a particular faction? Does it mean that these efforts are going to go on for a long period of time? And how do you mediate between Christians and Muslims in Africa, and particularly if it involves Islamic State? These are all questions for which there are no answers. But it is interesting that I believe that what the president has done is not a strategic move on behalf of the United States, but rather an attempt to fulfill the partisan wishes of part of his base. Now, that doesn't necessarily make it wrong, but it doesn't make it right either. So as we pursue a policy now in Africa, let us be aware that we are in the dark. And when I say in the dark, I mean just that. We don't know what the outcome is on a daily basis. We don't know who the targets are on a daily basis. And perhaps the argument can be made that this is military intelligence and should not be shared. And that may have validity. But there are a lot of unanswered questions. And if we, the general public, don't know, there's one thing for sure. Members of the Armed Services Committee in the House and in the Senate should be fully briefed. Remember, and we've discussed this before, that when it comes to foreign policy, a president is king. There are few restraints on what a president can or cannot do. As commander-in-chief, the president can give an order, and that order is to be followed. And so I am raising a question about Nigeria. I'm raising a question about what we're doing there. And I'm raising a question about whether this is being done to combat Islamic State or whether it is being done to satisfy key constituents of Donald Trump. Of course, you can make this argument on many levels, over many issues, but I've chosen this morning, because Nigeria is in the news, to really make it happen. I should tell you, I pulled out a map and asked a friend of mine to show me where Nigeria is. No way. Nobody knew. So this is just another thought. I want to move away from Nigeria to Ukraine. This Christmas in Ukraine has been horrific. And all of us know that the Russians are now targeting the sources for energy in Ukraine. This as winter is descending. There is now a proposal that Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, has made. He's saying, okay, if the Russians will withdraw from a particular area, we will withdraw from a particular area, and we'll ask for international monitors to come in and take a look. Let me quickly point out that Vladimir Putin would never agree to such a thing, because Vladimir Putin's goal is not a ceasefire, it is conquest. But there's more. Zelensky yesterday, on Christmas Day, went into deep negotiations with representatives of the President of the United States, Steve Witkoff, and of course, Jared Kushner. Now, here's the question. We are told now that before New Year's, meaning in just a week, it is possible that Zelensky and Trump will meet. We haven't been told to what end that meeting would achieve, but nonetheless, there seems to be some movement when it comes to Ukraine. But the most important movement that we are seeing now is continued drone attacks by the Russians on Ukraine, and Ukraine answering as best they can with their own responses. We know that a Russian general in Moscow was blown up, and we assume that that is because of the actions of Ukraine. In short, in this season of peace, there isn't a lot of peace, is there? It was interesting to me that when Pope Leo delivered his statement on Christmas to the world, his emphasis was on peace. He spoke about Gaza and the need to help the people of Gaza. He talked about Ukraine and the need to make a real effort in terms of Ukraine. And it's interesting to note that once upon a time, when the Pope spoke, it really meant something. I don't know what it means today. This is a serious question for the Catholic Church to deal with. Is the Pope a figure that has the presence and the dominance that the Pope once had? And by the way, among evangelical Christians, there is great skepticism about the papacy, and there has been for years. But this is another field that has to be negotiated. And I would suggest that the odds of the Pope and the President meeting, well, I think they're pretty good. We always remember that great and good Pope, John the 23rd, who at the height of the Cuban Missile Crisis played a critical role in terms of, well, making people understand the dangers of nuclear war. I believe that the Vatican has a role to play, and how Pope Leo presents himself to the world is going to be critical. I want to say a word about American foreign policy in general. You all know there is a great controversy in Greenland because Donald Trump and his representative in Greenland continue to speak about the United States controlling Greenland. And you may know that the foreign minister of Greenland responded vigorously saying, "We're not going anywhere." And of course, Greenland is controlled by Denmark. There is a fascinating question about Canada. Is Canada going to become the 51st state? And what about Panama? Remember Donald Trump's threat to take the Panama Canal back? And when you stop and you think about all of the things that Donald Trump has claimed in terms of foreign policy, well, it's a question. And of course, he also told us that he is entitled to the Nobel Prize for Peace because of all the peace he's brought, and he cited Sudan as a great example. And of course, we all know the violence in Sudan, rather than diminishing, has been escalating. Now, you might ask yourselves, why, when we have the Epstein files and so many other issues domestically, including the Kennedy Center controversy, why I am focusing on foreign policy? And the answer is because in American foreign policy, as it is constructed, the person who is at the center is the President of the United States. While Donald Trump or anyone is president, they have the ability to influence the direction of where we go and what we do. Remember that as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, so designated by the Constitution, when a president gives an order, that's it. And we do know that the controversy still exists over whether or not an order can be rejected. And you will note, and I raise this because I think it is an important point to raise, that the administration is still threatening to go after Mark Kelly, United States Senator from Arizona. Why? Because Kelly and several other colleagues, all of whom are Democrats, challenged the question or restated the question that if you don't think an order is lawful, you should not have to obey it. And of course, Kelly is now being threatened with being recalled to the military so he can be court-martialed. This is not the first time the president has threatened this kind of action. But I do want, in conclusion this morning, to point out the importance of a president in foreign policy. If, in fact, presidents are the key to deciding what our policy will be, and they are, then we need to think carefully about who we choose to be president of the United States. There is no doubt that Donald Trump holds in his hands, when it comes to Venezuela, for instance, major decisions which will impact all of us. His decision to bomb in Nigeria, a unilateral decision, affects all of us. And perhaps the most important single factor in all of this is an Army, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard, which is obedient to the Commander-in-Chief. But of course, what we really want, I think, is a thoughtful foreign policy in which there is real communication between the leaders of the Senate and the House, who also have a critical role to play in foreign policy. So on this, the day after Christmas, it is important to consider the role of America in the world, and most important of all, the role of the President of the United States in administering the affairs of our nation when it comes to foreign policy. All of us will be watching with great care to see how things develop in Nigeria. We will be watching with great care to see how things develop in Ukraine. We are looking with great concern at what this administration is doing in Venezuela. In short, my friends, the world is a remarkable place in which to live. We don't have a choice, of course, and we want to make sure that foreign policy is conducted in a careful manner. Well, we'll see. That's what makes Around the Political World with John Rothman, and frankly, all of our interests in world affairs, so interesting. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's episode. You can write a review on Apple Podcasts, drop a comment on YouTube or Spotify, and click any of the links in the show notes to connect with me on social media. Remember to share this episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand, which, as I constantly point out, is our goal. This show has been getting so much positive attention that we are very pleased to have the advertising support that we have, and we hope this will create more opportunities for Around the Political World with John Rothman. And now I want to say a special thank you, of course, to Gogo Zoger, the wonderful producer of this podcast, who does such a great job every day. Gogo, have a good weekend of rest, and we hope you had a wonderful holiday. And I will be back with Gogo on Monday for more of Around the Political World with John Rothman. See you then.
College football never stops. When college football news breaks, it breaks on On3. From the transfer portal to the playoff race to coaching changes, the sport is moving every single day. That's why college football fans turn to On3, a trusted authority with real reporters and real communities built around the teams you care about. Find all of your favorite teams and join the community. Get the full picture at on3.com. That's ON and the number 3.com.
If you're an HVAC technician and a call comes in, Grainger knows that you need a partner that helps you find the right product, fast and hassle-free. And you know that when the first problem of the day is a clanking blower motor, there's no need to break a sweat. With Grainger's easy-to-use website and product details, you're confident you'll soon have everything humming right along. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening. Happy holidays! Want to give your host a gift? Consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show this holiday season. It really helps the show grow. From all of us at Believe, have a Merry Christmas, everyone, and a Happy Holiday.